For far too long, the effective management of the customer's experience has been considered a soft skill. But today, successful companies recognize that the customer experience is king, or from my perspective, is queen. Welcome to CX Unplugged. I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez, your host, and in this series, you will hear from me and other industry experts about how prioritizing the customer experience led to amazing outcomes. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of CX Unplugged and the special series, Lessons Learned, where I bring you raw, real, and refreshingly honest stories from CX leaders who have been there, navigating challenges, rethinking strategies, and turning missteps into game-changing moments. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here today. We are going to be hanging out with a rock star in the multifamily industry. Today, our guest, Amanda Macklin, has made some major moves in the industry. She's transformed organizations, raising the bar across the industry. But today, we're going to talk about something just a little bit different. Those early career missteps that ended up being key learning moments. So I'm really looking forward to hearing some of these, great conversational moments with our guest, Amanda Macklin. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm so excited. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm an open book. I'll talk about all my missteps, right? I do not care to be messy and to say I messed up here. So I've been super excited to talk to you. Thank you for rescheduling with me like 3 times.
Oh, no worries. I mean, girl, I know how it is. Well, and that's also interesting. I mean, I know how it is too, right? Like we've been there, done that. I remember very early in my career, we had a building at my very first property actually. And we used to it had a lot of vacants because it had been new construction, and we called it the stink building. So because it stunk all the time. And I was like, what can we do? We'd put air freshener in and everything, spray all the time. Like when we'd have a prospect coming or something. And it took me a few years until I figured out what the stink was. And then that was when I moved to a new property in Plainfield, Indiana. My maintenance supervisor, I think his name was Ray Altman. Ray Altman. Hey, if we reach you, thank you for this. But he told me, Gabrielle, the reason that it stinks is it's sewer gas. It's coming up from the trap and all the sinks because nobody's using them in these units. Mind blown.
Just run water.
So, talking about lessons learned, I was spending all kinds of money on, air freshener and everything else. And if I just run the water, would have solved the problem. So anyway, so Amanda, tell us, looking back on your career, can you share maybe just a funny or memorable time where maybe at the time it seemed like a good idea, whatever that decision or action might have been. And then looking back, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Well, there's so many. As we learn, so I won't tell you about getting run over by a golf cart or joyriding in the golf cart and into a retention pond. Many, many things that I did. And even another thing, I became a really good friend with a resident. I lived at the property. There were 2 guys that moved in across the way. I had become really good friends with them. They had been trying to get their cable connected forever. Cable guy shows up. They weren't home. And I let them into the apartment because I'm like, they have been complaining about their cable for how long? Let them into the apartment. A guy broke the couch. The cable guy moved the couch, broke the couch. Then they came to us, my property manager, and said, I didn't give a key release. I didn't say that anybody could come in my apartment when we weren't there. And I'm like, well, you're my friends. You've been complaining about this. So guess who got to pay for them a new couch? And it was like a 70s grandma's hand-me-down 3 times. And I got to buy them a brand new couch because I didn't follow procedure, right? I let somebody into their apartment. So little things like that were big lessons learned. But really probably,
right?
a hard lesson. I didn't have money to buy these dudes a couch. It was probably the nicest couch they've ever had, too, by the time they got it. And I lost what I thought were friends, right? Because I thought everybody on property was my friend.
Right.
But I would say probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned just holistically in the industry was I thought there was a certain path that I needed to follow, meaning when I got into this business, this is not what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a police officer. Can you imagine me with a gun?
Not on a runaway golf cart. I don't know. Like that's
right. So I thought I was going to be a police officer. I wasn't, but I got into this just for the discount. And I was like, this is a job. This is not a career. Like I would not work in the apartment industry. But then I got into it and I was really good, like really good at leasing and marketing and building relationships and all of that. But there was no clear career path. And so I thought my next step is I need to be an assistant manager. And then my next step is a property manager and then so forth. And so probably the biggest mistake I ever made was like the first 5 years of my career, all I wanted to do was just go to the next step. But those weren't my skill sets. I did not like collecting rent. I did not like sending late notices. I didn't want to be a property manager. I should have realized that I need to stick with my skill set, hone that, and find a pathway through that. So I would say probably, and it's so funny that you were just talking about your maintenance supervisor because I woke up this morning in anticipation of this and I was like, let me look up this person that I feel like changed my trajectory in my career and see if she's still around. And I found out she's passed away. So I'm really upset about that, but I'll talk about Kelly in a little bit. But my very first property manager knew that I was really good at what I wanted to do. And she tried to tell me, hone your skills in leasing and marketing. Don't become the assistant. And then of course I became the assistant under her and I was horrible at it. And she tried to teach me everything she possibly could. And I just kept thinking like, she doesn't want me to advance. Where the fact is, she did want me to advance. She just wanted me to advance where I was good. And I didn't listen.
Yeah. That's a great example too. But I would say like, I feel like back when you probably first got in the industry, that kind of was the only career trajectory, right? Like you did have to go through, like there weren't the property management companies, I feel like weren't quite as sophisticated or robust yet, right? As they are today. And so you did have to sort of go through that process, which, I'm guessing you would say in hindsight helped you in terms of just general knowledge, understanding, and skills gained or not.
Yeah. Totally. It also helped me identify what I wasn't good at. So like, don't do that again, right? Like, don't try to move from this property to this one to become an assistant manager because you are not good at that. Like, you suck. So, like, stick to what you know. So I will say that Kelly helped me in a way realize that my skill sets that I had honed in leasing and marketing is where I needed to focus and not trying to put like this round peg in a square hole or square peg in a round hole. Yeah. So that that was a lesson learned, but also you're right. Back then, so this was in the 90s.
The 1900s, you mean?
In the 1900s, right. Property management, I don't feel like was really an industry that people thought it was a career, right? Oh, she just works at my apartment. No, we're managing $1 million assets. We're finding people, 200, 300 people, their new homes. Back then, it was more of a job, not a career. And if you asked me back then, did I think here I would be 30 years later doing this as my career? I would have been like, you're a clown. Like, that's not a career. Now I'm like, I'm a one-trick pony. This is all I know. Here I am 30 years later, still doing what I love in marketing of all things, which I'm really good at. So it's a difference. There were no college degrees for residential property management like there are now. So the industry itself has evolved as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think I look back on my beginning too in this industry, and I'm so thankful for a couple of the people who were so very influential to me, who really held a high standard for the data aspects, for example, of the job, and the professionalism. We got all of our brochures and all of that stuff done. I remember very, very professionally. We paid copywriters. We, had design consultants and all that. That's when we were making paper brochures till back then. Right. But, and we entered all of the awards to, garner recognition, which we did. There were those people. I'm very thankful in hindsight to have worked collaboratively and for, those very, very smart and dedicated people that helped me understand the level of sophistication that is needed in this business. So,
yeah, I look back on so many people that shaped my career, right? Good and bad, because I think that there's a lot of lessons that you can learn from not the supervisors or bosses that were like, okay, they did not invest in me. They didn't see the potential that I had. They critiqued everything in a negative way, never pointed out the good. And so even in those lessons, right, I feel like, okay, that's not how I want to be. I know that what I have left in this business is my legacy. Oddly enough, I think you have the same thing. I have a child in this industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so my child got to grow up in the business, like it enough that she has ended up in this business. And what I say is there's a couple of things that you have: your reputation and your integrity and your will to learn, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. That is what I have to leave behind. It's no secret. I'm an older person. I'm got my eyes set on retirement. My legacy is what I have left. Not only my daughter, but anyone that has ever worked for me. I want them to look back and say, my boss had full integrity. She invested in me, the skill sets that I have. She put me in the right places, in the right rooms with the right people. That's what I am excited to leave behind, right? I'm not too excited. I still have a few years left, but those are the things that I look back on and go, okay, what do I get to leave behind? And hopefully people that think of me or have worked with me or have been my clients will say, she was somebody that was honest. She said it like it was, but we admire her for that. Mm-hmm. And that's so exciting to me that's what I'll get to leave behind.
I agree. And frankly, I would say that you're right on track for that. So kudos to you for manifesting and living that. Yeah.
People either love me for my personality or they hate me for my personality. I'm not going to make everybody love me, but I know that
I don't agree that there's anyone that hates you, but we can't all be everyone's cup of tea, because some people don't like tea. They like champagne. I think I saw that someplace.
Diet Coke.
So you mentioned some of the better bosses and better experiences and worse ones that have helped to shape your career. When you have hit those bumps in the road, were there any go-to strategies or people that you look back on and you were able to utilize to help you keep persevering or moving forward?
Yeah. So just like I said, I hold myself to a standard of integrity and honesty. I struggled early in my career with people that maybe didn't have that same level of commitment to honesty and integrity. Mm-hmm. And so I hit some roadblocks when I would stand up for what was right or stand up to those people. I think looking back, maybe there was a different avenue I could have taken a couple of times. But when you move on from one job to the next, the only thing you can take with you is your integrity, right? So if you sacrifice that, even though this industry is big, it's going to get around, that, hey, I don't know about that person, especially when I was in sales, because I went to the vendor partner side. Is I never wanted to be known as that person that she'll do anything or say anything to get the sale, and then they never execute, or the product is bad or whatever. So I think standing up for what was right, and I had to do that on the operations side and even on the vendor partner side, when we would sell a product and it didn't work the way I had sold it, I would go back to my team, my product team, and say, look, I sold it this way. We have to either make sure that it works that way, or I'm not going to sell that product anymore. And so sometimes that went over well, and then sometimes that went over not well. But I think that people knew that I was always fighting for the better good of my residents, of my team when I was on the operations side, or when I was on the sales side, for that company to grow. Like, kind of my MO has always been to go into properties and help them scale so they can be purchased or acquired. And so that was my goal, right? There was a big prize at the end if we got acquired or if we sold, but I wanted to do it on integrity. I did not want to scale or grow that company in the wrong way, because what you do in the dark always comes to light, right? Yeah. So when the lights are on, I need to make sure that what I said and what I sold and what I did was with full integrity intact.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Great point. And I mean, I think that applies, regardless of what industry you're in, right? Anywhere in life, that's Absolutely. A good philosophy and strategy to execute on. And I think, too, I reflect back on ways maybe that I've handled things. And I think because I too, I think we share that, like, I always had the best interests, residents and the team and the company in my mind. But I can recall just like some cringeworthy moments where, my thought of how I was demonstrating integrity was to be like super direct and just say it. So I'd say like, that's a really crappy job, and people are like, well, that's really rude. You know what I mean? And in my mind at the time, I thought I was being really transparent and helpful. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to tell you. If I think it's good, I'll tell you. If I think it's bad, I'll tell you. And I did. And in hindsight, I can still appreciate the integrity that was driving that approach, right? But I think probably I could have communicated those things more softly, right? And taken a little bit more time to think about how to most effectively communicate that message that I do think it's crappy, right? Like, how could I say that rather than just saying it's crappy? Maybe I could have said that in a nicer way, a kind way. And so that's one of those lessons learned that I have, that like, in that space that you were just talking about, right? Like, I have the integrity, I do have the best interest, and I did, and I can reflect back and still know that I did. But my execution, at times in hindsight, it was crap. My execution was crap.
Girl, so my husband can attest to this. I don't back down from a fight, right? And I early on in my career, I took great pride in, I'm going to stand on business and I'm going to do this. And again, same thing with you. My delivery was so bad. And I remember my husband, even when we were dating one time, I came home from work and he was like, you need to understand, you are not the boss of me here. Like, you are not going to talk to me that way here. And so it made me kind of self-reflect that actually, my grandma used to say you get more bees with honey than vinegar or whatever, right? But it's true, even in corporate. And I will forever tell this story. Dana Zeff, who was the founder of Lease Labs, and my passion was high. I was really excited about something. She came to me about something that I immediately got defensive about, and she was standing over my desk, and I stood up and crossed my arms like her, and I was like, you will get out of my face. And like, literally, it was like I was in a fight at the club, like I was going to take my earrings off and throw down with her, which I never would have done. But midway through the fight, I'm realizing that I'm standing up with my arms crossed, like reflecting her anger back at her. And I'm like, we're either going to come to blows or I need to like sit down and calm down. Now, thank God Dana is who she is, and we talked it out later. But anybody else that I ever worked for, if I would have responded that way, probably would have said, like, pack your stuff and go. And I even went back to my hotel that night and was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call my husband and tell him I just clowned on my boss and I'm going to be flying home because I've been fired. And it was absolutely the wrong reaction, but I was so passionate and I felt accused of something and my walls went up and I just lost all professionalism. Super embarrassing story to tell, but it's funny now because I'm still friends with Dana and we can laugh about it, but it is absolutely the wrong approach and the wrong response to have. And I feel like you can be passionate and you can stand on business, but your delivery is everything. And I learned a big lesson that day. And I owe Dana so much just for my career in this business, but I owe her so much because she didn't can me that day and she had every right to. So, yeah.
That is, first of all, that's a great story. I'm like, so now we've got you cruising around like a property, like in a runaway golf cart with a gun. Oh no, you didn't actually have a gun, but you could have. Okay. And then like going fist to cup almost with a really respectable boss.
Yes.
I mean, but it's great. But you know what it shows? I feel like our viewers can even relate that like we're all just human, right? And
right. Oh, totally.
Even with the best of intentions, we still sometimes fall short. It happens. The question is, and I love what you said earlier, you said you either succeed or you learn.
You either win or you learn. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's great because that's so true. And even when you win, again, it's all about what are the KPIs too, right? So you could have maybe, you go into that property and you do really get it turned around quickly and it's great and it sells and makes the owners a bunch of money. But in the meantime, maybe, you had a whole bunch of residents whose rent went up really fast and a lot and they had to move out. And so like, did you win or not win? Or, what are the KPIs for winning? The point is, there's always something great to learn from. And we all are human. We all, get it wrong, even when we think we're getting it right sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. We have this process at Cushman & Wakefield. We just recently wrapped it up, which is our employee reviews. And our standard, we have exceptional employees. Like I'm so lucky to have the team that I have, but our standard is meets expectations, right? So there's like needs improvement, or below expectations, needs improvement, meets expectations, exceeds expectations, and exceptional. So I'm always like, I want to be exceptional. I want to be exceeds expectations. But there's a lot of data behind that. And so meeting expectations means you are doing everything that you are supposed to do in your job and you're doing it well. So meets expectations is a good thing. It's a really good thing. But we've conditioned ourselves to be like, oh, I went above and beyond this one day. And so now I'm exceeds expectations. It's like, no, you're supposed to be going above and beyond every day. And so it's a hard process for me because I want everybody to tell me how great I am all the time. And the fact is, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm meeting the expectations of the company. And we use KPIs to gauge all of that. But it's kind of interesting because I want to win all the time. And I'm not going to win all the time. I'm not going to win all the time next year or in 3 years. But I'm learning along the way. And so one day, maybe 10 years from now, I'll be exceptional.
Well, Amanda, I would say that you're exceptional in many, many ways, and you're winning, and you have been for years in many, many ways as well. So, and those are some pretty broad KPIs that I'm looking at in that space. But I think, as we wrap this up for our listeners, I think it's been such a really great conversation. And, I'd love to say, like, is there one piece of wisdom or advice that you would like to give to those young professionals who are just coming up and maybe are not feeling so confident because maybe they had one of those learning experiences as opposed to when they were looking for a win? But is there one thing that you'd like to maybe share with them?
Yeah, I will. I think about this a lot, and I think it's because of how long I've been in the business and now looking back and what would I tell my younger self today? Probably, I had some really good advice, and it wasn't even from a boss. It's just a really good friend in the industry, Carrie Polonsky. If I don't know if you know Carrie or not, but she's so smart and she's got so much wisdom, and she works in HR. But one of the things that she told me is when you find those employees, and I'm talking to the people that are probably employees now, you save the ones that swim towards you. Meaning, when I identify an employee who is working hard, they're swimming to learn as much as they can, educate themselves, know what their pathway to promotion is. Those are the ones that you invest in, right? We have people in our industry that it is just a job, just like it was for me at 19, 20 years old. And then there's people that are like, this is my career. Save the ones that swim towards you. Save the ones that are working hard to learn, to grow, that they know where they want to go, help them identify what their skill sets, put them in the right places and all of that. And the other thing I will say, and I am using this actively now, is Netflix uses this as when they're reviewing their employees, is if I knew everything that I knew about this person before I hired them, would I still hire them? And two, if they gave notice today, would I try to save them? And those are two key points when I'm working on a restructure, when I'm doing employee evaluations. Those are two questions that I ask. And I think employees need to know that because they need to self-evaluate and say, am I doing everything in my job that my boss would rehire me if they had the chance? That's a mirror in your face. And you have to say, am I being the best version of myself? And am I a good employee that they want to invest in me? So those are the two things. Wow. And I was driving my golf cart all wildly through the property, maybe with some drinks in me or not. I'm not going to say. Would I have rehired myself? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. And I wouldn't have tried to save me if I gave notice. So you have to think that way. When you want a promotion, you want a pay raise, you want your bonus paid at full, you have to think of that because that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. I love it. I think those are great words of wisdom from someone who has been there, done that, and is still here to tell about it.
I know, right? Here I am 30 plus years later. That's so embarrassing.
I know, it seems so weird. I feel I really have a hard time.
I worked for you, Gabrielle. I worked for you. So you can tell me if I was a good employee or not.
Well, I thought you were exceptional, as I still do today. Henceforth,
I appreciate it. As do I feel that way about you. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think that wraps it up for today's session. Amanda Macklin, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to tell our viewers how they can reach out to you and get more information on this or, your company and what you're doing now? Let them know how to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So obviously LinkedIn is a great channel to connect with me. I am the Senior Managing Director of Strategic Services at Cushman Wakefield. I oversee the whole country, but a team of marketing folks and learning and development we're working on. We're doing lots of things. You can always reach out to me via email. It's amanda.macklin@cushwake.com, and that's cushwake.com.
I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Crazy. We live 2.5 miles apart. Next time it's over drinks, right?
That's right. That's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, Gabrielle. It was so fun.
Thank you. And thank you guys and all of our viewers for joining us today on this episode, the special series of lessons learned on my podcast, CX Unplugged by the Multifamily Media Network. Stay tuned, and I hope you'll join us again.
Bye.
CX Unplugged, where we have redefined who your customer really is. Join me next time to hear more missteps and masterful manifestations in the world of multifamily customer experience. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network.